Hey, Swale. I'm so happy that you could join us today. My English name is Toni Winterhoff, and my Chomach, or my traditional name, is A. Lanny. I work here at the First Nations Health Authority as a healthy children specialist, which means I get to do lots of pretty fun stuff from prenatal right through the early years. I am a nurse. I am a mom of three who I breastfed to varying degrees of success and time when they were little. And I'm so grateful to be able to spend some time with you today to introduce Indigenous Milk Medicine Week um, and get us started in a good way. Before we continue, I would just like to say a heartfelt thank you to Barbara Webster, who really was the driving force behind making sure we got some resources out this week, as well as Aidan Farrow for helping us find some incredible speakers. It's going to be a really fun series, you guys. So, with that being said, I would like to open us up in a good way and say this. I guess I would like to say if at any point I shouldn't misplace my words and use breastfeed or chest feed in a way that you didn't feel comfortable with or isn't in alignment with your beliefs, I do humbly apologize. We're still new at this piece, and I welcome that correction. And all I can do is keep practicing to become better at this. Uh, with that being said, when we talk about Indigenous milk medicine, one of my favorite questions that came up, like almost like it was planted at a series, was somebody said, well, what's the difference? What's the difference between um, our breastfeeding recognition week that happens later on in the year and Indigenous Milk Medicine Week? And I don't think that it's a difference of one is better than the other or one should be better resourced than the other. I really appreciate the opportunity to highlight Indigenous milk medicine and the reasons why perhaps um, it's just really nice to celebrate and honor the strength of our Indigenous uh, feeders. One of the pieces that I don't often think about, though I did when I took my lactation counselor training, and I certainly thought about it later, um, was through colonization, we had a lot of points of contact where barriers may have presented that continue to this day. And some of the pieces that I hadn't thought about was not just removal of language, of culture, of traditional foods and lifestyles, but also simply the removal of mothers from their children so that young children didn't see mothers breastfeeding as much or as often or receive those teachings. And it's just one more thing to reflect on when we think about intergenerational trauma and the impact of colonization. Um, I myself have never seen a woman in my family breastfeed before me. And I definitely didn't have, unfortunately, any family members to pass on any of that knowledge. So I'm incredibly grateful for the elders that did take the time, for our knowledge keepers who still do that today. Um, the other important piece about Indigenous milk medicine is it really does tie back to food sovereignty. We could spend a whole session on that. I just want to highlight that when we take part in knowledge exchange like today, and we take the time to, for myself, it's about improving my own nursing practice, equipping myself better with better language, better tools. Um, all of that is part of reconciliation work. I am doing part of my reconciliation work in making sure that I'm practicing as culturally safe and humble as I can be. And I like to say that modern feeding is just kind of catching up with ancient feeding. It feels like we've come in a circle. So we've always fed our babies, always. And to that end, we've always had barriers too. Luckily, we've always had knowledge keepers who are able to help assist through that. So I would just like to, I guess, point out that we've always known how to do this, and we've always had helpers. And here we are returning to that. And other pieces of modern feeding that I really feel are ancient feeding is things like skin to skin contact, rooming in with baby. Those are ancient practices that modern science is now studying the benefits of, and including but not limited to honoring that postpartum time. So this week is a little bit of a celebration of extending our knowledge, maybe picking up a few extra tools and stories. I invite you to bring your most curious self and to offer any input in the chat, anything that comes up for you, any questions, because we're bringing our most curious selves too. And we're always looking for ways that we can transfer this knowledge in a good way. I actually didn't know this until I took the lactation counselor training, that 90 to 95% of all feeders have enough milk supply when they're supported. I was unaware of that. And I thought that was so beautiful and a good reminder that chronic disease or hormonal imbalance or any number of elements notwithstanding, it's so empowering to remember that we do have the capacity to do this in a good way. So those are just little pieces of information as we open up that I wanted to share that I've really been thinking about for Indigenous Milk Medicine Week. But the truth is, I'm very much still learning from our elders. I hope I never stop. I hope Creator is generous enough to continue to provide me with opportunities. And so today, to launch us, we actually have a recorded video of Elder Marguerite James, and she recorded this piece in collaboration with Ashley Simpson, who is currently on our Research and Knowledge Exchange team, and a passionate MCH advocate. So I'm going to defer to them for these teachings that it was just such a joy. I've watched this video twice and gotten so much information and strength from the combination of modern teachings with our elders' words. So if you'll bear with me for just a moment, I will turn us over to that. Um, Barb, do you mind? I can't see anyone on the screen. Barbara, Aiden, do you mind confirming once I hit play if you can hear this?
Yep, I can see it right now.
Yeah, we can see it.
Let them introduce themselves. But quickly,
Yes,
we
we can
do
see
have
it
a
here.
survey that I'll put in the chat below. And so at the end, if you could just take like a couple minutes to fill it out, it would really mean a lot to us. And so pass it over to Marguerite.
Good afternoon, everyone, or is it morning? I want to, my name is Marguerite James. My Indian name is Tanat. I come from Penelakut tribe, and Penelakut is called Penelakut, Tanitana Penelakut. Nilkwasnisna Tanat. Glad to meet all of you.
Thank you, Marguerite. And could I invite you to open us up with some words and an opening prayer just to start us off?
Okay. Thank you, Creator. Thank you for blessing me to be with this beautiful people today. Creator, you bless us. You bless us with children. Every day we have children that come to us, the beautiful babies, that the gift that you give us, Creator, the gift that's out there for us, and to cherish these gifts that the Creator is putting upon us, that we had a wish for that baby, and now you, Creator, have given us that wish and given us the gift of life, and for us as mothers to know that We're going to love and care for them in the best way we can. And Creator, I thank you for letting me be with all the different nations of people, so that we can work together. And if we work together, we can make a better world for all the mothers and the babies. And also the last thing I want to say, a better world for our Kwalmachmastino, our native people. I want to say bless you, all of you that are in my circle today. I want to bless you as you leave our circle today, and have a blessing in your heart, in your spirit. I want to uplift your spirit to know that you're okay and that you're a good mom to be. And for the workers that are sitting with me, I bless you for having us get together and we can help our Kwalmachmastino, our native people. Hajpa.
Beautiful. Thank you, Marguerite. Thank you for starting us off in such a beautiful way today. So hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Simpson. My family is Wet'suwet'en. My mom is Wet'suwet'en from the Hegwilget Nation, and I'm also English and Scottish on my father's side. And very grateful to be joining you today from the traditional Coast Salish territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation, where I live with my husband and my 2 kids. And so I have a bit of a background in doing doula work, in childbirth education and breastfeeding counseling, and have had the privilege of supporting families alongside Marguerite for about 8 years now. And so very grateful to have the opportunity to be sharing this information with all of you today alongside Marguerite James. And I also want to say thank you to the Capay Wellness team for inviting us to be here and to share with all of you today. And so I'm just going to open up, I have a PowerPoint or a slide presentation just to kind of guide our conversation. As I already kind of mentioned, but I want to acknowledge Marguerite and I are both presenting from Coast Salish territory here in Snuneymuxw on Vancouver Island today, and want to acknowledge all of the traditional territories that you're all joining us from today. So I wanted to start off our conversation today by just honoring some teachings that have been passed along to me from a Salish elder, Jerry Ullman. And he often talks about the importance of giving thanks and acknowledging those who have carried us and nourished us and loved us and just really supported us to be where we are today. And so wanted to share this this picture of my great-grandma, grandma, my auntie, and my mom as we're having a conversation today about breastfeeding and just the importance of community and family and support in nurturing the future generations. So as Harley already mentioned, this week is an exciting week in the breastfeeding world. It's National Breastfeeding Awareness Week here in Canada, which means lots of exciting resources and events and things coming out on social media platforms and things. So lots of really great information coming out from different organizations and support groups this week. And so I also wanted to start off this conversation by just acknowledging that breastfeeding is a choice that we make as families and as parents. And I really believe that, parents know what's best for them and for their baby. And as we, get into kind of more discussion around what the benefits of breastfeeding are for babies and for families and for communities, just honoring that everybody makes a different decision about what works best for you and your baby. And just know that, whatever amount of time or, amount of breast milk you're able to provide for your baby is truly a gift, and that I really respect the decision that you make for you and your family. So the World Health Organization is an international agency that they put out health recommendations and kind of best practice guidelines around all things health related. And so the World Health Organization also has recommendations around breastfeeding. And so I was going to go through a few of those with you guys. And so the first one that the World Health Organization recommends is to initiate breastfeeding within the first hour after baby is born. And so this has benefits for both mom and for babe. And so breastfeeding in the first hour after birth, if baby is put to your chest and able to latch on and start feeding, it actually helps with the third stage of labor, which is birthing the placenta. And so the sooner that the placenta is birthed after baby is born, it reduces the risk of bleeding and postpartum hemorrhage, which is obviously a health benefit for mom. And then it's also shown that breastfeeding in that first hour after birth really helps to increase the likelihood that baby will breastfeed well, and breastfeeding will be kind of established and successful over the breastfeeding journey for babe. And so the World Health Organization also recommends exclusively breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life. And that, sorry, my dog is whining in the background. But so exclusive breastfeeding looks like only breast milk for baby in those first 6 months of life. And so no other solid foods or liquids, including water, are recommended until baby is at least 6 months of age. And this actually helps with decreasing the risk of baby developing any allergies or food sensitivities. And so it's also recommended that breastfeeding is done on demand, which is basically saying that baby gets to feed when and where they want. Breastfeeding on demand means, night and day, baby is showing signs or cues that they are interested in feeding, and the breastfeeding person is responding to those. And so it's also recommended that no bottles or pacifiers are used in those early days, especially when you're first establishing that breastfeeding relationship. And this is just to kind of better increase the parent's ability to read some of those cues. So baby might be smacking their lips or sticking their tongue out, or they might be bringing their fist to their mouth and kind of showing these signs that they're interested in feeding. So sometimes if we offer a bottle or a pacifier, when we see some of those signs, we're missing some of those feeding cues. And so we want to be responding to those. And sometimes babies feed for other reasons than nutrition. Baby may not always be hungry. Breastfeeding is an amazing way for, connection and comfort and pain relief. And so there's so many reasons why baby might be interested in feeding. And so it's really encouraged that the breast is always offered, despite if it's, baby's actually hungry or not. And then at 6 months of age or beyond, but 6 months kind of being the earliest stage, baby can start being offered safe and nutritious foods, but while still continuing to breastfeed as you regularly would for up to 2 years and beyond. And so some babies are interested in solid foods at the age of 6 months. Sometimes it looks a little bit closer to a year or beyond. And so it's important to be offering those foods. Kind of a common practice is, when family sits down to the meal, foods are offered to baby. Maybe they're sitting in their high chair. They're a part of that, family dynamic at the kitchen table. And baby is able to kind of explore those foods. And if you've ever witnessed, a 9-month-old or a 1-year-old eating solid foods, about 99% of the time that food doesn't make it into their mouth, but that's okay, because there's a saying that food before 1 is just for fun. And that's exactly what it is. Babies, exploring those textures and flavors and practicing their fine motor movements. And it's really just kind of a time for baby to explore. And they're still getting the majority of their nutritional needs met by either breastfeeding or formula. It can get a little bit messy, but it's an amazing learning experience. And so, oh, sorry, of course. Were you going to share, Marguerite?
I was. I'd like to give a little bit of history and information of our time as mothers, because I'm an elder and my time, we were taught to, they don't have all the different things that mothers can, told me that in order to make your, to prepare for your baby, when you're going to have the baby, he told me, you get a kind of a sharp towel and you rub it on your breast about 10-15 minutes a day. And what it does is it toughens up your nipple, because the reason is to prepare yourself for when the baby is going to start suckling on your breast. And also, one thing that you need to know is that some babies are really strong when they suckling on your breast. Some are pretty strong, and I had one baby that was really strong, and my nipples got cracked, and it was really painful to feed. So in order for us as young mothers, then we had to rub that and prepare for our baby. And one thing I like to say too is that it was natural for our mothers to breastfeed. There was no other alternative but to breastfeed. And I like to tell a story about a grandmother that I met, and she said to me, I was trying to feed my baby, and my baby would not accept my breast milk, she said. But you know that our milk from the moms are nutritious. There's different nutritional values that come from the mom that the babies get, that you don't need to have medical stuff from the drugstore, and your breast already has those nutritional values that's in the breast milk that helps your baby, and it's kind of helps them health-wise. But I'll tell you about this. I'll go back to my story of this elder. She said that her baby would not accept the baby milk that was coming from her. So our people in our time, we had to find other ways to feed the baby. So what she done was she got the link cod, and what she done is she made broth. She cut the head off, put it in the pot, and she made soup. And what she done was she used the broth to feed the baby. And the baby took the broth, but wouldn't take the breast milk, but took the broth from the lingcod, the fish. So our people had to find different ways to give them nutrition, but we found a way. So I'd like to put that in there. You'll notice baby is facing mom's breast with her head and body in line, not having to twist and attach. Sometimes mom has to fix a way so that she can get have it comfortable for her and the baby, because you can't have the baby nose, stuck in the breast so that the baby can't breathe. So that's just one point that I want to put across, because Ashley, you may have other information. I might be getting ahead, but I wanted to tell you that was the old-fashioned way to rub your breasts before your baby comes and make your nipples strong so that you can endure the suckling from your baby. That's an old-fashioned teaching. Thank you.
Thank you, Marguerite. And that was the perfect segue into talking about, you were sharing how our breast milk has everything that our baby needs. And it was the first traditional food when there was no such thing as formula or other ways of supplementing nutrition for our little ones. So really grateful for you sharing those words. Thank you. And so exactly what Marguerite just said, there's so many benefits of breastfeeding baby, and our breast milk is often referred to as being the perfect food because it does contain everything that our baby needs, including antibodies and other molecules that help to keep our babies healthy, helps. It's kind of like our built-in pharmacy. Our babies get our breast milk, and our bodies respond by producing antibodies to help them fight any infections or colds or illnesses. So for instance, things like diarrhea or respiratory illness, helping with childhood obesity and diabetes. Our breast milk really helps prepare baby's body and support their body to be healthy throughout infancy and throughout life, actually. One of the other huge benefits of breastfeeding is that it promotes healthy attachment. And so attachment is something that we talk about a lot in kind of healthy social and emotional development for our little ones. And so attachment is basically the relationship that forms between the caregiver and the baby. And so in this circumstance, we're talking about mom and baby. And so all of the elements that make attachment work really well are present in breastfeeding. So things like, smelling mom, hearing mom's voice, hearing mom's heartbeat, getting that skin to skin time, all of those pieces, eye contact, all of these pieces that really promote healthy attachment. And so breastfeeding helps to really foster and nurture that relationship. It also, breastfeeding helps with release of oxytocin. And so oxytocin is often called the love hormone. And so that's released in mom and in baby when breastfeeding occurs. And so that just helps to strengthen that attachment bond. Breastfeeding also promotes healthy tooth and jaw development, and can even help with things like speech and language development. Breastfeeding promotes healthy brain development, sort of what we already talked a little bit about, the social and emotional development. And it also decreases the risk of sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS.
I'd like to add on to that. The connection between the mom and the baby, that first connection that you have, baby, is the most important time in the mother and the baby's time in their life, for that connection to happen. And it's so beautiful, and it's just natural for the babies. They taught me, just put your nipple on the baby's cheek and the baby will find it. And they did. And that connection I had with my baby, that was the most important time in my life as a young mom, to know that I had an impact on that baby and we were connected in a good way, and we could use that time for feeding to have that connection happening between mom and you, connection happen. And that's so that you have to enjoy that. And sometimes you lay down and you fix it up so that you can lay with your baby and enjoy that time. You know, that connection period between you.
Thank you, Marguerite. And that just reminds me of, I mentioned it kind of briefly, but it promotes skin to skin. And so as Marguerite's talking about connection and having that relationship and that special bond with baby, breastfeeding is really an opportunity to increase skin to skin time. So every time baby is brought to the breast, skin to skin is happening. And so that's a really amazing opportunity to help baby with regulating their body temperature and their heart rate and their breathing and their blood pressure. And so all of these really amazing health benefits come for both mom and baby actually when there's skin to skin time. And so it's also a huge factor in nurturing that attachment relationship. So thank you for that reminder, Marguerite. And so there's also a lot of benefits for mom and for family that come from breastfeeding. One of the benefits of breastfeeding in that first hour after birth, but also in those first days, is that breastfeeding helps to control postpartum bleeding. And so oxytocin is released when we breastfeed. And so after we've had baby and we're talking about birthing the placenta, oxytocin is released and helps our uterus to contract back down and expel the placenta. And then also in those first postpartum days and weeks, you might notice that when you're nursing your baby, you're feeling kind of crampy or kind of contraction-like sensations. And that's your uterus contracting down to its pre-pregnancy size, which is a really healthy process that we want to happen and helps to control postpartum bleeding and prevents any hemorrhaging. And like I already mentioned, breastfeeding releases hormones such as oxytocin in mom and in baby. Also skin to skin with any caregiver. So if dad or grandma or somebody has baby, skin to skin, they're getting that amazing oxytocin release too, and helps strengthen those attachment bonds with other caregivers. But oxytocin is really important for postpartum because it helps reduce stress, it helps with pain relief and recovery time. So it helps with mom's healing after birth. Just really helps for mom to kind of stave off any symptoms of depression or anxiety. So it can help with those elements as well. Breastfeeding decreases the risk of breast cancer, uterine cancer, ovarian cancer, and things like osteoporosis and type 2 diabetes for mom. And so the way that works is the longer that you breastfeed, increased benefits, health benefits you get from it. And so, for instance, your risk of breast cancer decreases the longer that you breastfeed for. Breastfeeding helps return to a healthy body weight postpartum. So mom's body is working so hard to be producing that nutritious, healthy milk for baby. And it's burning a lot of calories while doing that, hard work. And so really helps in returning back to a healthy body weight after baby is born. And of course, breastfeeding is convenient, available anytime. It's always the right temperature. Most of the time, there isn't really any extra equipment or supplies that are needed. So easy if you're, visiting family or, on the bus or the ferry or something, and, baby needs to feed and there isn't really any extra steps needed. You can just feed your baby then and there. And they say that breastfeeding is supposed to help caregivers get more sleep because you're not getting up in the middle of the night to prepare bottles and things. So there's a few less steps involved with breastfeeding your baby for those night feeds. And so maybe you're getting a little more sleep. And of course, breastfeeding is free, which is an enormous benefit for families.
I'd like to add on to that. We need to look after mom. Mom has to eat the proper food. Her diet has to be okay and not eat acidy foods or drink liquids that have acid in it, because it tends to irritate the baby. So if you may have fed your baby and you think the baby's full, but sometimes mom eats the wrong thing, and it's causing stress in the baby, so they have tummy ache and they're crying a lot. And it's not that they're not hungry, it's just that mom has ate the wrong food. And I was told a lot of foods that I couldn't eat, and I thought at the time, why are they being mean to me? And why is they telling me not to eat this and that? But it was for my own good, so that I could look after my baby in a good way and not hurt her by having tummy ache and crying constantly because I ate the wrong thing. So moms, we have to look after ourselves all the way through. And also, we have to be calm. And I know sometimes you go through stressful times, and we need to be calm down, and so that the baby doesn't feel that, because that connection between you and your baby has to be a really nice, common time, so that you two can enjoy that time. So that's one thing I did wrong, was to eat the wrong food, drank the wrong thing. And when the elders say don't drink this and don't eat that, they know what they're talking about, because it's for our own good, so we can take care of that baby when we're breastfeeding.
Thank you, Marguerite.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed that video as much as I did. It's always such a pleasure for me to get some time listening to our elders, and of course Ashley, who is just always a joy to get to listen to. Just in case, as a healthcare provider or a nurse, anything might have flagged for you during that presentation, it's okay to say, oh, I'm not sure how I feel about that piece, or that kind of raised a flag for me. So we just want to respectfully acknowledge that we deeply value and honor the wisdom and experience of our elders. Their stories and messages are treasures, and they guide our path forward. And while we embrace those beautiful teachings and stories, we also recognize the importance of incorporating the latest information and research. So it's our hope that by thoughtfully blending traditional knowledge and contemporary or Western medicine, that we can weave those two together and create a really rich tapestry that offers the best information we can for moms, while still respecting our past and our elders who offer us those insights. So I feel like that was clear as mud, but I did want to just add that and address that and say that as a care provider myself, I consider that all of the time. I carry our elder stories close to my heart, and I utilize them to guide me in decisions. But I also acknowledge that we're always wanting to move forward with best practices as much as possible. So with that being said, I just want to thank you guys for joining us today. Today is only our opening session. What a beautiful way to open and hear some lovely teachings. Tomorrow we will have Inez Jasper with us as well. Inez Lewis will be joining us tomorrow for an information session that I'm really looking forward to. I didn't see any questions or comments come up in the chat, but I'm happy to open it up right now if that's okay.
Toni, I was just wondering if anybody else had any ideas or suggestions around how to navigate these different conversations when there's a difference between what we're recommending now versus what the person is suggesting. And I mean, it can even be within the hospital system and the healthcare system, where even within nursing or other people that aren't up to date with their knowledge. And are still telling things that, I mean, I've heard it from moms that have just recently had babies, and I just, and I sort of think, oh, I cringe, because it's healthcare providers that are saying these things that are in the workforce right now. And how do we navigate some of this and not give all these mixed messages necessarily to the parents? So there might be some people on the call here today that have actually got some experience, have come across this and come up with some great ways of saying things that other people can learn from. So if anybody is wanting to share, that would be great.
While we have the silence, I'm going to take that as a segue, Barb, to let everyone know that Tuesday's session will be on empowering conversations, and will include some tools for you and some language that you might like to use, either when working with elders or family members, or parents, or healthcare providers who, like Barb said, may not always be working with the most up-to-date or beneficial information. So if that's something that you struggle with, I know I sure did. Tuesday, we will be hosting Empowering Conversations. That was such a good segue. Thanks, Barb.
All well planned out, right?
If there's no one else that would like to comment, I was thinking about, just what you were saying, Toni, about knowledge and, wanting to do the right thing and using the most up-to-date knowledge. And who was it that said that? I think you said that yourself, that we're doing the most ancient thing, feeding our babies. And there is really no right way, as long as the baby and the parent are happy and healthy. And, everything I learned, my daughters are, my eldest daughter is going on 23 right now. And so I studied lactation. I became a peer counselor quite early after she was born. And so many of the things I learned, we no longer teach. And that was in a very short time. And I breastfed my children in Italy. I've lived in Australia. I've lived in Canada, amongst different cultures and people. And there's so many different ways that people feed their children. And so, I think we need to be open to everybody's knowledge and choose what's right for us, because we don't know if 10 years, 20 years down the line, we will be cooking lean cod as a substitute, right? We just don't know. I was reading, interestingly, like the early research into pablum and these products. And, that was science at the time. But if we look back on that science, it was not science. And so, I think we can just strive to do the best we can and to be open to people's knowledge and do what feels right for us in the moment. And definitely, take everything with a grain of salt. And, if something's not harmful, then, you know, we know that some things are harmful, and those are the things that we have to be wary of and listen, you know, I think. But you know, if I think of the formula that I was fed as a baby in the 1970s, that would no longer be sold. And so, you know, knowledge changes, and we think we're doing the right thing, and maybe we are, and maybe we aren't. And so, you know, we just have to be humble and try and do our best.
I still have my baby book that my mother was given when she left hospital, and that the doctor was filling in. And in there is a recipe for how to make formula. With corn syrup and I don't know what else, evaporated milk or something, because she was not breastfeeding. I think at that point formula was coming out. She had the money to be able to buy the formula. So I quote unquote lucked out and got the formula versus the homemade one. It was probably the better of the two. But yeah, times have changed.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate that. And I really liked that framing, Aiden. Thank you. Because absolutely, even my own littles are still little, and the way that we feed and the way we understand attachment and bonding has changed so much just in this time. So what a beautiful reminder that knowledge is so dynamic.
Lee Geiger just put in the chat, and Lee works for Perineal Services BC and is a lactation consultant. And she says, always important to acknowledge their experience, gentle introduction of new information, share the reasoning, invite their thoughts, and I think always value their support and experience as we navigate updated information. Just some thoughts. Honor the way a child has been, is being, and will be nourished. And then thanks us for the webinar. So great words.
Really
Well said.
Okay, well, it's 2:22, and if everyone's feeling comfortable, if you have any questions or follow-up, please do email the MCH Nursing. Barb, is that okay?
Yep.
Perfect. The MCH Nursing email. And we thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you tomorrow and for the rest of our webinars. And I just really want to thank you for carving out time out of your day to honor Indigenous Milk Medicine Week and the launch, and to say thank you for bringing your most curious self.
Thanks, everybody. Great to see everybody.
Toni.